Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing a lot of talking. We are going to be talking about how I overcame my fear of spiders and what kind of led me into having a passion for them, going as far as collecting them and even having an entire YouTube channel about them. I know I've touched on it here and there before, but I've never really made an entire video and sat down and just talked to you guys about my experience. I noticed lately I've been getting a ton of messages saying that I'm helping people overcome their arachnophobia, how a lot of people have been inspired to even go out and buy their own tarantulas and stuff like that. Since I have been in your place, I thought it would be kind of cool to sit down and talk about where I came from and how I got here. So I get asked a lot if I was ever afraid of spiders, and surprisingly, a lot of people don't realize that I was actually really afraid of spiders. I noticed that with keeping tarantulas in the hobby, there's two kinds of people. It's people that were afraid of spiders and are overcoming their fear, or people that have been interested in spiders since they were really little. I am the first kind of keeper where I was very arachnophobic. Growing up, I did collect lightning bugs and cicadas, June bugs, stuff like that. If there was ever a spider in my room when I was a kid, I would always freak out. My sister was the same way. We were so scared of them. And I think a lot of that fear just kind of came from learning that they're scary and not actually learning about them. As I got older, I kind of did get this weird fascination with spiders and tarantulas. I even recently scrolled back on my personal Instagram and I just saw random pictures that I took of spiders dating back years and years and years before I ever even got one. But I do recall when we got our first apartment, there was a spider on my door. It was a little jumping spider with the green fangs, and I saw it and I literally freaked out. I remember I called the maintenance person because we were friends and asked if he could come get the spider for me because I didn't want to touch it. Eventually, I somehow herded the spider out of the apartment myself, but I remember sitting down afterwards and going onto Google and typing black spider with green fangs. And at that time, I didn't even know it was a jumping spider. I had no idea what kind of spider it was, but I looked it up and I saw all those cute close-ups of jumping spiders and I found out what species it was and how it was harmless. And then I felt really stupid about freaking out over a spider that was essentially adorable and harmless. From there, I made it a point to just not even bother a spider unless it was one of two species. In my area, there are only two medically significant spiders, and it is the brown recluse and the black widow. So I pretty much made up my mind that if it was not a brown recluse and if it was not a black widow, then I should not bother the spider. I should just let it exist. And from there, years and years, that's pretty much just what I did. I didn't bother them. If I saw a jumping spider in the house, I wouldn't bother it. If I saw a wolf spider, anything, just chillin', I just let it chill and I would just leave it be because I knew that pretty much they were harmless to me. So I really didn't need to do anything. I would try to remove it if I could, but it wasn't a priority. I wasn't terrified like I used to be. Another thing about me is that I always have kind of collected animals. When I was a kid, I had hermit crabs, guinea pigs, gerbils, hamsters, tons of fish. Eventually, I became an adult and I was like, oh my God, I can go to the pet store and I can buy any animal I want and my parents can't tell me I can't, and this is great. So the first animal that I got for myself as an adult, I think it was hermit crabs, and I had them for a few years and I didn't really know that much about them and I don't know, it just wasn't my thing. But then I got older and I got a betta fish and I had so many fish tanks from there. It just turned into 4 different fish tanks. Eventually, my husband and I got our own place. I got gerbils and I got Rango, our crested gecko, and I just was really into my animals. So that's just kind of where I stayed for a while. So before I had Fiona, I was very invested in college and I went to school for a couple different things, but the last thing I graduated for was an associate's in fine arts, majoring in photography. So before I had Fiona, I was totally invested in my artwork. I was totally invested in my fish, my animals that I had at the time. After I graduated college and then I got pregnant right after and I had the baby, it was I was just a mom, which there's nothing wrong with just being a mom, but I felt there was I just needed my own thing. And then that's when a jumping spider pretty much just came back into my life and changed it yet again. And I think this is where my love of jumping spiders really comes from, because it was a jumping spider that kind of changed my mind about spiders, and then it was a jumping spider that essentially got me into tarantulas. So I remember after I had Fiona, she was about 6 months old and I saw a jumping spider on our window, and it was really pretty black jumping spider. I thought it was like really cool looking, and I knew it was a jumping spider. I knew it was harmless, and I wanted to catch it. So I had an empty baby bottle, and I actually like went up to the window and I scooped it into the baby bottle, screwed the lid on, set it down on the table, and I just thought, you know what? I think I'm gonna keep this spider as a pet. So, you know, I did have Ringo, my crested gecko, and I would get him crickets occasionally, and I thought, okay, you know, whenever I get him crickets, I can give the spider a cricket too. So before that, I had never really seen a spider eat or anything. So I remember when I first gave it a cricket, I was like so intrigued. I was like, whoa, crazy. What a cool feeding response. Like, this is a really cool animal. So I think I caught that jumping spider in March 2017. So I went to Tropical World Pets because I remembered that I had seen spiders for sale there like for years, and I always like would look at them and I'd be like, why is that spider $60? Like crazy. But I went there because that's where I usually would go for my fish, and I asked them like, hey, I have this jumping spider. What do I put it in? Do you guys have any suggestions? And the owner actually went in the back and he grabbed like a little deli that had some air holes in it. He had thrown some eco earth in it, and I think like a piece of cork and stuff. And he said, there you go. Like, you can just put it in there. It'll be totally fine. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, thank you. And so I took it home, I rehoused the jumping spider into it. And from there, I really started doing a lot of research on spiders, specifically jumping spiders, and specifically getting spiders as pets, because it just never really like occurred to me before that. Like, I didn't get it. I didn't even really realize there was more than one species of tarantula. Like, I don't know, it didn't really occur to me. I started like looking all over the internet. I found a lot of information about keeping tarantulas, and that was like really intriguing. So I had the jumping spider, I think from March 2017 to about June 2017. So once it died, I really was like trying to find another jumping spider, and I never really could find one. And eventually I just kind of started like looking more and more into getting a tarantula. And I remember like one of the first videos I really watched was Petco from the Darkton. I watched his channel a ton. Whenever I knew that he had a new video coming out that day, I would just look forward to it like so much. And I remember I would show like people and I'd be like, dude, look at this guy's channel, it's so cool, he has all these spiders. Like,
Editing Kat here. So I also wanted to add that another draw of getting tarantulas was that at the time I was still kind of like a new mom, but they were like really easy for me to care for. So that is like another reason why I started getting into tarantulas, because it was like pretty much the only pet I could keep and not have to worry about for long periods of time.
So yeah, eventually like between all of that and watching the Darkton and doing a lot of research on tarantulas, after stumbling upon it, really just decided to get a tarantula. That's when I got Wester, my curly hair tarantula, my Toledocotyle abelpillosa. At the time it was still Brachypilma. The thing is that when I got him, he went inside his coconut hut, and then I just didn't see him for like weeks. So because I hadn't seen him for like weeks, I decided that I was going to go get another tarantula. I wanted a rose hair. Eventually I found one and I did buy it, and so it was cool because like since I couldn't see my curly hair very often, it was nice to get another tarantula. Then from there it just kind of snowballed, and it was like, I have a curly hair, now I want a rose hair. But that was a sling, so I got another rose hair, but it was an adult female. And then I wanted an arboreal because I didn't have an arboreal, so I got Calypso, my Avicularia avicularia. I really wanted a Grammostola pulchra, and I found one for sale. And then I remember I ran into like Brachypilma Toledocotyle vagans. Once you have one, you just kind of keep collecting more species. Once you learn about more species, you want more species. And then once you stop keeping just beginner species, you kind of step it up to more defensive ones, because your fear kind of depletes the more and more you collect, in my experience anyway. At some point I started making videos about it because I did watch a lot of Tarantula Tube. I kind of always wanted to make a YouTube channel, but I never knew like what to make it about. You know, in school, like I said, I went to school for fine arts. I really loved taking photographs, and we did, you know, learn a little bit about videography in some of my classes. I learned, you know, Photoshop. I took several Photoshop classes. So yeah, that's just kind of like how it all happened, I guess. And I just kind of committed to making videos about them. If you kind of go all the way back to where I was and where I am now, I mean, it's just like crazy because I've just become like so much more comfortable around all of my tarantulas. Like, don't get me wrong, I still jump, but like it's not necessarily because I'm like scared of them. It's more necessarily because it's like unexpected, like jump scares. So yeah, I don't know, like I'm still getting over it. I still do have a little bit of a fear behind it, I guess, but it's not like I don't know how to describe it. It's more of like a fascination. It's nothing like it used to be. Definitely not. But yeah, so that's just kind of like my story, and I'm here documenting it. I guess it just made sense to talk about it. I guess my biggest piece of advice if you're afraid of spiders and you want to get over it is to just educate yourself on them. They're not these scary, like, poisonous things that we make them out to be, you know, they're really just not that at all. And it's just, it feels so nice to not be so scared. Like when I'm digging through a dark corner of my closet, I remember like when I would clean like under my bed or in a closet or in any dark place, one of my biggest fears was coming across a spider. And I don't have that fear at all anymore. Like I don't feel that anxiety anymore. Like sometimes one will jump out at me and I'll go, ah, but it's not like I'm going to like freak out over it. It's just unexpected, you know? In fact, it's kind of exciting now when I find a spider and I'm like, oh, cool, like what kind of spider is this and whatever. So it definitely was a process, and I would say it's still a process, from fear to fascination to familiarity to collecting them and just really educating myself about them. It's just made me feel a lot better to coexist in a world with them. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it was a little bit different, but I just thought I would share my experience and my whole journey. Anyway, like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not, and you want to be. Don't forget I have an Instagram that I use probably way too much. It's at Tarantula.Kat. You can go follow me there. I also have a Patreon, Teespring, and podcast. It's all linked down below, and I will see you guys soon.